All right. I'm going to share my screen. Hope everybody's doing good today on this beautiful Tuesday. All right, today we are talking about creating a brand. Again, this is another super interactive class, so feel free to like jump in and ask questions and whatever we want to do. So the first thing that I want you guys to understand is that the power behind your brand. So a lot of people think of a brand as like some of the tangible assets like logos, websites, that kind of thing. But I want you to go beyond thinking about the tangible assets. Your brand is truly anything that your customers or your clients come in contact with. So that is your systems and processes. That is like how you interact with other businesses, like all of that kind of thing is considered your brand. And once you understand how to harness this, this is really what's going to propel your growth. It'll help with sales, the customer, the client experience, user experience, awareness, all of that stuff is going to be incorporated behind the brand, okay? And as we're going through this, we're going to be focusing a lot on personal branding, mostly because, especially as real estate agents, the line is very blurred between business and personal because you are your brand. And I would really go as far as to say any business owner should take this role. There's a lot of people out there that we know of, like Oprah, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee. All of these are very, very well-known people, and they understand the power of personal branding. So if we think about these three individuals in specifically, how many of you can actually even tell me what their business names are, their company names? Most of us kind of think about it for a second. Sometimes people can come up with Harpo for Oprah's, but most of the time their business names we don't actually know. And that is because they understand the fact that they need to brand themselves even more so than their companies, that they understand they are the brand or that they should be the brand. So essentially your brand is your story being told with intention. Now this story is going to be told whether or not you're aware. So when we take a proactive approach to our branding and our story, we're actually building that intentionally. And so we're telling the story that we want to tell, not what people are assuming. And oftentimes there can be a really big disconnect between a brand and what the person thinks they're putting out and what is actually being put out there. So being able to be intentional about it, and we'll talk about how to do that and what's best practices and things like that. Okay. Now moving on, I love this definition from Marty Niemeyer of a brand, that he says it's a person's gut feeling about your product, service, or company. So what are some of the things that create that gut feeling? So this is going to be like images that we use, fonts that we use that create emotions and feelings, different colors, that kind of thing. So we want to decide what we want people to feel when they interact with us so that we're putting out the correct image and that we're being effective and intentional with that, right? So I know, Tyler, you do a lot of really fun stuff with this. I know with like your dad jokes and things like that, right? So that feeling that you want people to have when they're interacting with you, that is a lot of things. So for me, if I was to make that gut decision about your brand, I'm going to assume that you are somebody that likes to have fun, that's going to make the process more enjoyable, things like that. So is that what your intention is with your brand?
Yes, that's actually very perceptive. Most people never make it past the punchlines and the eye rolls. But yeah, that's actually an intentional part of my brand. I do it on purpose to kind of lighten what can be a very heavy process.
Cool. I love it. I love it. So once we decide like how we want people to feel when we're interacting with us, then that helps to guide us through the process. So we'll talk about that a little bit further on. And thank you, Tyler, for being willing to jump in there. I appreciate it. This dude, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Richard Branson. Some people are, some people aren't, but he is one of the most fascinating people to me. This is a screenshot from his Twitter page. This has been a couple of years ago, so the numbers, if you were to look, are going to be much different now. But there's a couple of things that I want to talk about as far as Richard Branson goes and his brand, because I think he's definitely understands the philosophy of a brand. So if we fast forward here, Richard's personal Twitter account that you just saw had 12.6 million followers. So that, again, like I said, was at the time I pulled the screenshots. And at that time, I also compared numbers to some of his larger companies. So like Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Galactic, Virgin Media. You can see the highest one on these is 587,000 followers. So he really understands the necessity of branding himself and getting his name out there. And this does a few things for him. So anytime he starts a new venture, something going on, people already understand who it is behind the venture. So it gives him more ability to bring in more capital and get people behind the new ideas and the things that he has that he pushes out. The other thing that I love is that he proclaims himself as a tithe-loathing adventurer, philanthropist, and troublemaker who believes in turning ideas into reality. So if we go back here to his personal page again, if we look at the images that he uses, the fonts that he uses, the colors that he has chosen, all of that is very, very intentional to give you a perception about who he is as a person. So if we had come back and his profile picture was him in a suit and tie speaking at an event or something to that effect, that is going to be a disconnect from what he's trying to put out there. Does that make sense? So all of his images come in and support this adventurer, this, powerful figure. The colors that he uses, with the red and the blue, that's very bold. Red is a power color. The fonts that he has chosen are all very bold, very clear fonts. So being able to buy into that just simply, even with our subconscious mind and what we're receiving based on what we're just perceiving in his page. Does that make sense? So he's very, very intentional about what he puts out there. And I think that's very important. Okay, so skipping ahead a little bit, this is the one thing, if you are getting a logo done, that I will say we're not going to cover a ton here because logos are something that I believe you should hire out. But I do believe that once you get through this, this class here, this will give you a good idea if it's something you want to visit with a logo. You can take this information to a graphic designer and have them help start working on a design for you. But absolutely, this is what I recommend hiring out, because the fastest way to discredit yourself is to have like a blurry image or logo that you've done yourself. And I'm sure, like Tyler, I know you've been in the real estate world for a while, but have you ever gone into a house where there's a flyer on the counter and the images are blurry or the logo is blurry? And what is your immediate thought?
Oh, it drives me insane. One, because I am a designer, and like I know better than many real estate agents. I don't blame them for that, but I do blame them for not hiring it out, for not going outside and having a professional do the work for them. It's relatively inexpensive, and we even have designers on staff here at Presidio who are free to use. All you have to do is tell her what to put on the page, and she'll do it awesome for you.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and when you get a logo done for yourself, so obviously if you're just starting out, Presidio, like you can use Presidio's logos. They have, all of the things in there that you can need in your design boxes that you can use until you have your own designed. But once you do go in and get a logo designed, you want to make sure you're using a quality graphic designer. You want to make sure they're giving you vector images, and that's going to allow you to use images that you can scale up as big as you want, so that they don't get blurry. So exponentially, you can scale those up. Those are typically types of files you can't open on your own. They're like .ais or .esps or .svgs, like those different kinds of images that you won't be able to necessarily open up, but you can use them and they will allow you to exponentially expand your logo without it getting pixelated. So, and they should also give you like style guides, colors, fonts, all of the things that they use in your logos to make sure that you have everything you need in your brand kit. So, and then until you get to that point, Presidio has great brand kits you can use. Make sure you're using those and you're sending people the correct images from the brand kit. So you always want to send your graphic designers your vector files. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, moving past this. We kind of hit that right there. I want to talk a little bit about mission statements. So this is another part of your brand that I think is a really great way to focus on getting your why out there and sharing part of your story. So we're going to dive in the further weeks. We have classes coming up on creating your ideal client avatar. We'll talk about that. And then the following week, I believe, is actually when we'll dive into stories and how to tell craft stories. So a lot of the stuff is going to piece in and help you identify your ideal clients, as well as starting to craft some of your stories. But part of your story and learning to talk about that is your why and the foundation of it. There's many times I've coached clients on this particular part, or branding or company culture. Anytime we're talking about that, I always love to visit the mission statement. First off, because I want to know who has it and who knows it. Because I would say 95+% of the time when I come in with a company and I sit down with them and ask them for their mission or vision statement, most of the time I get like oh, hold on, I think it's over here by the copy machine on the wall, right? So they have one, but usually they've just printed something off of Google and changed the company names and said, yeah, that sounds good, and called it a day. It's one of those things that we feel like we have to have, but we don't necessarily know what it's about or why we have it. So I believe your mission statement needs to be a reflection of your why within your business. I believe it needs to define your company, not only what your company does for its customers and employees, but also within the community. And I think this is something that you need to revisit often. I think that's the other problem. People will set a mission statement when they first start their company. And as they grow and evolve, their mission statement has not grown and evolved with them. So it's definitely something, if you've had one for a while, that you should revisit it and make sure that it's still in alignment and then it makes sense for you and your business. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit, and we'll talk about how to create it. So many of you know that I used to work with a title company, a local title company here. And when I first started working with them, kind of the same thing. I wanted to know, like, hey, what's our mission statement? What's our values? And they kind of the same thing. They're like, oh, I think it's this this paragraph on this brochure here. So they pulled out the brochure and I read off the paragraph, and I was just kind of like, it's like just nothing fancy. So it just says Integrated Title Services LLC was founded on the philosophy and expertise, the experience, the expertise really matter. We are here to provide you with the very best in title and escrow services and to allow our knowledge to work for you in building trust and confidence in your clients. So that was like fine, but they didn't even know what it was, and it didn't really talk about who they are as a company and what they stand for. So I told the owner, I said, I really think we should revisit this. And as we're talking about company culture, this is something we need to come together and spend some time on and make sure it's a good reflection of the company. And he said, no, I think we can just write it real quick. So let's just sit down and hammer it out. And I was like, okay, so, it's obviously it's your company. So I went in with him, and this is what he wrote at the time. It says, our expertise creates an environment that makes the real estate and mortgage professionals shine with a closing experience that produces the repeat and referral business they deserve. And so that was what he came up with there. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. But again, it still was pretty blasé. And so I had sent it out to the other owners and said, hey, I'm going to have plaques made with this so that you have it in every office, so that it speaks out, that it talks about and really puts out the company culture. And so, and I sent out a bid for the plaques and everything. And then when it came time to get it, one of the other owners was like, hold on, I just really don't feel like this is a good reflection of who we are as a company. And I was like, okay, now we're talking. So I was able to bring in all 5 of the owners, and over the course of a few months, we really were able to hammer it out and go through the process to bring something in that truly was a reflection of the company and the why behind what they do. So then they were able to launch out with this manifesto and mission statement. So this says, Integrated Title Services is committed to redefining the title and escrow industry by creating an elite closing experience that brings an environment of repeat and referral business for our clients, and we will always uphold the following standards. We are solution makers and provide peace of mind with unparalleled satisfaction. by helping to protect one of your biggest investments. We believe in educating and growing others. We always give back and support our community. We believe in our team and are committed to growth, and we inspire those around us to excel while leading by example. So that was what we came up with in the final, which is so much better. And then understanding that that's also kind of a mouthful, we came up with some simplified pillars of excellence that they have in their offices now as well. So those are: redefine the title and escrow industry, create an elite closing experience, educate whenever possible, provide solutions, lead the industry, and integrity at all times. So now, in a very concise manner, you can see exactly who they are and what they stand for. So when you're thinking about mission statements, you want to be able to very clearly define who you are, what you stand for, and what you believe in a very succinct and clear way. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do here is go through a couple. If you want to grab a piece of paper, we're going to go through a couple of exercises. These are going to help you start to clarify who you are as a company, so you can start to voice that out, if that makes sense, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is list 2 of your unique personal qualities. Okay. And then once you have those down, I want you to list 1 or 2 ways you enjoy expressing those qualities when you're interacting with others. And then assume the world is perfect right now. What does this look like? How is everyone interacting with each other? How does this feel like? And you want to write this as a statement in present tense. So describing an ultimate condition, the world is perfect as you would see it. And remember, this is a fun and lighthearted place to be, right? And then once you have that done, you want to combine all 3 of these sections into a single statement. So the example here says, my purpose of using my enthusiasm to support and inspire others is we all freely express our talents in joyfulness, harmony, and love, right? So whatever that comes out for you. The other thing I will say too is, if you want, sometimes people, especially when we're on a Zoom class and we're kind of buzzing through things, you don't have enough time to kind of dive into these. If you would like these worksheets, please put your email in the chat and I will send them to you after class, okay? So go ahead and throw that up there, and that way you can spend some time and really dive in on answering some of these, okay? So what this is going to do is to get you to start thinking about what's important to you, what things matter to you, so that you can start to craft what that vision or mission statement looks like for you, okay? All right, the next one we want to be able to do as a brand is define our core values. So core values are extremely important, especially nowadays. You'll see this, and every generation seems to be even diving more and more deeper. So anything really from the millennials and earlier is extremely core values driven. They want to know who you are, what you stand for, and they want to align themselves with individuals and companies that support their same core values. So this you'll see come about in lots of different ways. So that's why like cancel culture is such a big thing right now for lots of different people. You know, like people, especially, I think Chick-fil-A is a great example from several years ago too, where this was a pretty prominent thing, where they had some of that issue, but you saw how people came out in either massive support of Chick-fil-A or boycott, right? So that's why we've got to make sure that we are putting out there, and it's a way for you to be able to articulate who you are and to attract people into you based on what you believe. So the first one here, what do you stand for? These, I believe, are your non-negotiables, right? These are the things that no matter what, you always stand for. What are those things that you will go to the mound for, right? The second one is a little bit different. So these are going to be more of like your tangible things. Like, what do you value most in life? So these are going to be things like family, time, hobbies, right? Some of those things that you really put a lot of value on. And you want to be able to articulate these on a regular basis when people are interacting with your brand, okay? The biggest thing for our brand, like I mentioned earlier, is how you want people to feel when they're interacting with you? And that one question, I think, really can become the checks and balances system for everything you do. So if, you know, if Tyler wants people to have fun when they're interacting with him, then he needs to be able to go through all of his systems and processes and find out, you know, where are the points that are the least fun for people, or maybe where what's causing anxiety or whatever. Is it, you know, document collection? Is it however I can, you know, look at this, and how can I make that more smooth for them so that I can maintain that feeling that I want them to have throughout the process, right? And so this allows me to, every time I pick up the phone and to have a conversation, whether that is with, you know, my clients, or maybe it's with a realtor on the opposing side, or whatever that is, I go in with the intention of how I want to be a reflection of my brand. Does that make sense? I have a video I want to pull up for you guys here. Let me just dive in really quick. I'll find it on Facebook because this just came to mind, and I want to show you guys this because I think it would be applicable. So sorry while my slow computer pulls up here. Okay, I know it is in this chat. Okay. I think I might have to stop share and reshare it because I don't think I shared my sound. So pause and bear with me really quickly. Okay, can you guys hear that? Okay.
Mortgages! They're hot mortgages! Get your mortgages! You want a mortgage? How about you? Trevor!
Gotta be a little more careful. These are my crafts. They're very special to me, you know? Alex, I'm getting so stressed out. Can you work your magic, please? There it is. You're amazing. Hey, Laura, do you have any updates?
Yeah, these 6 are ready and clear to close. Cool. These others, they're close, but I'm still processing them.
Isn't my team the coolest? We love what we do here. Each team member knows exactly the status of each and every loan. So if you ever have a question, you can talk to any of us. We would love to have you be part of the Loans Can Be Fun Club. Let us know if you have any questions, and have an awesome day.
Awesome. Okay, let me get out of this one here. Maybe.
I'm coming home.
Back in. Okay, so what I wanted to kind of show you guys with that video is a couple of things. So that is a good friend of mine. She lives up like North Utah, like Weber County. But she really understands like the whole aspect of bringing that feeling into our company, right? So the loans can be fun. So it kind of reminds me a lot of Tyler's kind of strategy there, right? Like where she's bringing a different element to the table, but it really becomes her checks and balances system, right? So her office kind of is a reflection of that. I don't know if you guys paid attention to like some of the decor around there, but like the Bitmojis that she has on the wall, the Jones sodas that are all wrapped with stupid pictures of her face on there. You know, everything is very different and fun because that's the feeling that she wants people to have throughout the process. So there's a lot of ways that you can incorporate it. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the title of your company, but if you think about the words that you use, the values that you hold, the things that you do, you want that to be a reflection of who you are as a person and an agent so that that shines through. And that way you can use that as your checks and balances system through the process, if that makes sense. you guys have questions on that at all? Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, moving on here, strengths and credibility. So this is another one that I really feel like can set you apart in the marketplace. So I like to look at it as what I call our past life. I think a lot of us kind of fall into real estate as like it wasn't the first thing we tried out in life, and we have kind of come into it in one way or another. So what was it that you did before maybe that would give you a leg up in real estate, or what set you apart a little bit based on your past that is different than other people out there? And the reason that we want to talk about this is because this is part of what allows us to start finding our unique voice in the marketplace. And we'll talk a lot about this next in a couple weeks when we do creating your story. But this is a really vital part. So this, I mean, the last stats that I heard that in Salt Lake County alone, there was like 11,000 real estate agents. I think that's about correct. I don't know what it is in some of like Utah County or whatnot, but there's quite a few real estate agents. And if we're all saying the same thing and doing the same thing, everyone's going to start to blend in, and you're not going to stand out above the crowd. So that's why, like, you know, Tyler has such a great little thing going with him, like where he does like his dad jokes and the fun things, because he's doing something to try to set himself apart from everybody else, right? He doesn't want to blend in. He wants to stand out. So that's the idea here. So what makes you unique? What are some things that you can draw upon that will help give you a leg up against your competition? And that's what this page will be for. So what are your strengths? What are your skills? So skills are things that can be learned. Strengths are more things that you naturally have ability for. And then what is your credibility? Maybe certain licenses, certifications, education, that kind of thing that can come in and help to back you in this space. Okay. Does anybody have questions here? So I use the example for myself. You know, I used to own an interior design company. So for me, coming into a space of real estate, I'm not an agent, but if I was, I could come in and talk about, you know, new construction and the things that I learned in my days of real estate, or not of real estate, of interior design, that would help me in real estate. So I could talk about being able to do like fix and flips and knowing how to fix up a home well, knowing what, I mean, I know code inside, outside, it's really embarrassing, ADA, all of that stuff, but I can use that as my advantage because that is something that I know from my past that I can bring into the space to give me a leg up. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay. Awesome. All right. Now, talking about building your mission statement. So when you get to this point, the other worksheets are, again, just starting to get your brain churning on this mission statement process, okay? So what is the need, want, or why potential clients should do business with you? So again, really trying to hone in and target in on that niche or that demographic that you're trying to be relatable to. Give a specific story or example that illustrates that statement. What does your business do for its customers that makes it special for that target customer, right? So you'll be able to dive in this a little bit when we really start to hone in on who our ideal client is and why we want to target them. This number 3 is probably one of the most important ones, I think, on there. What good are you doing within the community and for your customers? And I think this is a really great way that you can start to set yourself apart from other agents in your area. For a few reasons. First of all, it helps you to establish for people a greater cause, right? So when they come in and they're working with you, they're able to give back to the community in some way. And I'm going to give you some examples of why this is important. And also the other thing is it helps you to avoid people trying to nickel and dime you over rates or what, or you know, your fees and things like that. You can actually help hold your value as an agent. So a couple of examples. First one, there's an agent I was helping a couple of years ago. She was brand new into the business. When she first started out her real estate company, she wanted to, right out of the chute, talk about her give back program. And she was very, very passionate about giving back to, it was an organization for that gives school supplies for teachers. And she was extremely passionate about this because of her own personal story. So when she was first married, she and her husband started having children, and pretty quickly she was able to determine, just based on the fact that she hadn't healed some of her past traumas, and that, you know, just given her circumstances, that they decided to have her husband stay home with the kids and she would be the main person working, just because she felt like that they would be better off full-time with her husband than they would have been with her. And so that was kind of the life they were living. And her mother-in-law actually passed away. And so she said, I was sitting in the pews listening to my husband give the eulogy for his mother. And it dawned on me as I'm sitting there with my two boys, as he's saying all of these amazing things about his mother-in-law or his mother, and everyone speaking, just, she was an incredible human, and just talking about what an amazing mother she was. And she said, it just hit me so hard that if I was to pass away, my boys would not be able to go and say those things about me, because I was so uninvolved in their lives. And so in that moment, she made a choice and a decision to make those changes and to heal herself so that she could be a better mother and be more present with her children. And so now that she had moved into real estate, this was several years later, and she was so grateful for that opportunity to create that relationship with her children, that now when she does any transaction, she actually has chosen the number 35 for the percentage that she gives back to this charity, because she was 35 when her mother-in-law passed away. And she chose the charity of the school supplies for teachers because her mother-in-law was a teacher. And so she's able to take that story, that's something so personal for her and so passionate about, and drive her business through it. Because when it comes down to it, if you know, you're up against other agents for a listing agreement or whatever it is, and it comes down to you and somebody else, and you have an amazing program where they can give back to the community by using you, they're going to choose you. You know, if everything is the same in you, they can do some good within the community by making a choice between you and someone else that doesn't have a program like that. Like 9 times out of 10, they're going to choose to do something within the community. The other example I wanted to give you too is a good friend of mine is a photographer. So this is a little bit different scenario, but I think it'll make sense for you here. When she was first starting her photography business, or, you know, she had been doing it for several years, and she actually had gone to school and got a master's degree in photography. She was extremely talented. And, you know, she's up against all of these other photographers in Utah, which a lot of people just pick up a nice camera and think that they're a professional photographer. And so they do things very inexpensively. And so she was really struggling because she was competing with these people and the price, and it always came back to price. And she just was really having a hard time with it, until she made the switch over to what good does her company do for the community. And what her story is, that she actually lost a child at like 2 or 3 years old. And so her passion is now capturing these moments for families that she no longer gets to capture for herself. And so anytime she does a family shoot, she actually takes and does a give back program to a family with a terminally ill child, and does a session for their family before the child passes away, so that they have those memories. So now people don't question her on price anymore. They don't question her on comparing to some of these cheap people, and they're drawn to her because she's doing good within the community, if that makes sense. So if you don't have something that you're behind as far as a charity or a cause or an organization, I highly, highly recommend that you find something that drives you, and it gives you something you can talk about and get out there to your clients, because it will do wonders for your business. Moving on to number 4, what does your business do for its employees? You may not have employees yet, but obviously the idea is we're all trying to grow. So if you don't, that's okay. Just think about futuristic employees when you bring someone in to work with you, you know, and whether that's a transaction coordinator, or maybe it's a showing agent, or whatever you want to bring into your business to expand. What do you want that to look like when you get those employees that they're working with you? Okay. And then once you have that one, I would say combine all of those previous things into a mission statement. So again, this is not going to be like your final mission statement, but this is at least going to get the juices flowing so that you have some ideas on what your why is, what you're doing within the community, and what drives you, so that you can very easily share that with someone, if that makes sense. Cool. Any questions there? And again, I will send out these worksheets so you guys can have them. Okay. Awesome. Moving on, I want to touch base really quickly on some of the tangible assets of a brand. So once you get going in this, I want you to start looking at, like, if you're going to get logos done or websites made, some things that you want to consider. So what colors and style are appealing to you? Is it clear, concise, and memorable? Looking at styles and fonts. And overall, is this a reflection of your personality and brand? Right? So fonts can be a big deal, like making sure that your fonts are cohesive, that when someone looks at it, they get that feeling that you want them to have, right? What colors are important? If we go back and think about that video we just watched of Loans Can Be Fun, I mean, her colors are hot pink, right? That's something that's going to exude the feeling she wants people to have, okay? So depending on what that is, if you want people to feel like, you know, luxury, supported, all of these things, like I think Presidio's logos are such a great example of that. You know, the black and gold is such a rich feeling. Like what feelings and emotions do those colors evoke in you? Okay, so think about that when you're looking at these things. Okay, brand messaging. So this is another one you want to consider. This is a great way to be able to very quickly get the message out about who you are and what you stand for. So your brand message should be a big, bold statement, very clear, very defined, and it needs to be meaningful and measurable. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So this first one, Harley Davidson, it just simply says, "We are Harley Davidson." And what that does, like, because Harley has such a name, we already almost can feel that rumble of the Harley engine, right? Like that is something different that we attribute to Harley. Quality, like what does that mean, right? So that is a very bold statement. BMWs, I love this one, the ultimate driving machine. I love this because their choice of words is such a great example on how to do a very good brand message statement. So you notice the words that they've used here. So ultimate, right? And driving machine. The word machine in particular is such a good, like that automatically creates a feeling or a thought for us about what that is, right? They didn't call it an automobile. They didn't call it a car. They called it a machine. And what words or what feelings does that word machine evoke in you by hearing it, right? So kind of think about that. And then I threw this one in here too, because nobody has heard it before, but if you understand, then you're like, oh, it makes sense, I get it. So Coca-Cola's is to inspire moments of optimism and uplift. So if you think about that, you know, it makes sense. The polar bears, the Santa Claus, it's all about share a Coke with someone, you know, like all of these nice, warm, fuzzy feelings that we get by supposedly drinking Coke. Right? We won't talk about what it's doing to our gut, but that's fine. All right. So just kind of understanding that. So think about what message you want to put across with the name of your company. Just a short little tagline, something that will very easily define who you are, that people can get that feeling quickly. Okay. Brand messaging, again, this is one again, because I'm kind of a nerd about this stuff. I love Jasmine Bina. I followed her for a little while, but I love this example that she gives. So she says, if 100% of decisions are made emotionally, why are we still using logic-driven, pain point focused messaging frameworks to brand our companies? And then she goes on to tell this story. I love this here. She goes, I bought $85 worth of cosmetics yesterday. They're good brands, logic. They make me look nice, logic. They're high quality, logic. And they're necessary for my brand research in the luxury space, logic-ish. But really, I felt like hot shit walking through Sephora and trying on makeup that was going to transform me into an empowered, beautiful, unstoppable woman, emotion. Right? So you already know what made me drop the cash. There's no pain point to solve here. There is no real hard pressing need. but there is instead a human intangible that all of them have capitalized on. It's an emotional need that's rarely expressed. So whether that's to fit into a tribe, realize one's potential, or escape reality, unspoken emotions like these are far more compelling than any pain point. And I love that she uses this example because that's what our brand message can do, is very quickly instill in someone that emotion. And emotion is really the key to building your business. That's why I hammer so hard on having a charity or something that you're passionate about, with a give back program of some sort, or just something that you're involved in some way. I think real estate is such a beautiful thing to, like, it is a vehicle to help us get to the end thing that we want to do, right? Like, it provides for us the way that we can give back in different ways. And emotion, being able to tie in with people's emotion, is what is going to create your repeat and referral business. When people have an experience with you and they feel the things that you are trying to get them to feel, and you understand and you care, and that emotion is present, that is what will lock people into you forever and ever, as far as clientele goes, okay? And when we understand too that oftentimes we view real estate, especially these days, as a transactional process, and it is not a transactional process. It is an extremely emotional process, right? That's why you can take a couple in to view a home, and the first thing that they come down to is, you know, how do they feel in that home, right? How does it feel? Can they experience, can they visualize themselves living here? Can they feel themselves being in this home? It becomes a very emotional experience, especially like if people are selling their home, same thing. It's a very emotional experience for people to sell a home. And when you can understand that and you start to make connections based on that, and you can build your brand around that feeling and emotion, that is when you know you have it locked in, okay? Does anybody have questions on that? Cool. Okay, we're doing great. Okay, so consistency for brand recall. So once you start getting your brand together, I recommend you have a branding style guide. And Tyler probably knows this too. When you get logos done, they should be creating these for you. This is going to help you to keep your brand on point, no matter what platform or who's helping you with your things. So this is essential for brand recall, okay? And I use this example here of the different Converse shoes, right? There are similarities between these Converse shoes, even though we know that there's different things about them. So this will help you on different platforms when you're working in different avenues, different things. So you have enough of your consistency that it still looks and feels like your brand, right? Especially when we dive into social media here in a second, we'll get into some of the stuff for social media. But I have a different type of conversation with people, or a different vernacular on LinkedIn than I would on Snapchat, right? Does that make sense? But there's got to be enough consistency that if someone sees me on both, that I'm recognizable. Does that make sense? So a branding style guide is going to help you with that. So it's going to help you, especially if you start handing off some of your marketing, things like that. You can give people your style guide, and it will tell them what images they can use, what fonts are approved, what colors are approved, so everything matches all the time, all of that, okay? You can start to build that up very easily, okay? So talking really quickly, just to kind of finish up, I want to give you some ideas for branding on different social media profiles and what you need to kind of watch out for, and how to kind of start to set yourself up. So your social media profiles are crucial, and the first thing anyone sees on any social media profile is your profile picture, right? So your profile picture needs to be current, and it needs to be very clear. And again, just kind of the same conversation we had with the logos. If you have blurry pictures up as especially as your profile pictures, people are going to judge you for that. And whether it's true or not, they are automatically, unconsciously going to make a judgment call about you and your business. And whether it's fair or not, whether we preach not to or not, it happens every single time. So you need to make sure that you are putting best foot forward, because if you are not even taking care of your profiles, people are going to assume you are not taking care of their business, okay? So you need to be recognizable. It needs to be a current photo, and it needs to be very clear. And it also needs to be a good representation of you and your brand. I use the joke all the time. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but not all real estate agents, but a lot of real estate agents get what I call the realtor schmuck photo, which is they stand with their arms folded in a suit, right, with the serious look on their face, which is great if you're Steve Perry, right? But if you're like, if you're not him or whatever, like, it needs to be a reflection of who you are, and you need to be recognizable. So it needs to be a reflection of your brand, right? It doesn't have to be that suit and tie. Okay, so what are you going to put out there for people to see? Okay, quickly going over here, personal pages, your personal Facebook page. Again, we talked about the profile photo. Your cover photo, I believe, needs to be something personal. You don't want to have too much real estate all over the place, because it's going to scare people away. This is where you want to feel approachable. This is you. Showcase the things that you love. Showcase, your hobbies, whatever, the things you're passionate about. Your intro, you'll see I've blown this up over here on the right. Your intro needs to be very short and concise. It needs to drop in some kind of fun stuff or things that relate to you and your personality. And then, like, at the bottom, you can put that you're a real estate agent, okay? Make sure that your bio is filled out as far as your work history, and you want to make sure that you have links to your business Facebook page, yours personally, as well as Presidio's. That way people can connect with you. They'll see that without feeling like it's too intrusive, okay? The next spot here, you've got your website. You can have a direct link to your website. And then right below that, you have 9 images that you can use that are your featured images. These images are going to be visible to anyone who sees your profile. They're public images. So be very mindful of what you're choosing to put here. You want things that are a good reflection of your brand, as well as some things about you personally. So make sure they're not all business things. Some of them are fun, some are business, okay? All right. And then moving over to your Facebook business page. Again, I use ITSs here as an example, mostly because I wanted to show you guys, for you as agents, I would not put your logo here in this profile picture. You guys, again, want to have a picture of yourself. Make sure that you're front and center. And then over here in your cover photo, you can have something. This is where you want to have all of the important information that you need to have for compliance. So your logo can go here, Presidio's information, all of that stuff. I would just put it in the bottom right-hand corner of the image so that it's there. You don't have to worry about compliance, and you're taken care of, okay? The other thing I recommend that you have on here is a way for them to contact you. So whether it's this blue bar here, whether it's email, send message, whatever that is, allow them to be able to contact you. And then make sure everything that's in your services page or your menu is active. You can actually go in and turn things on or off based on what is being used. You just want to make sure that everything that you do is usable, or that there's like links, that there's stuff there, right? So if somebody's, like job openings, I think is one. If you're not hiring, like, just turn it off, because you want to make sure that everything is used. And you can also change the order in which they show up on your page. So you want the things that you want people to interact with the most up at the top. Okay, so whatever that is for you, whether it's reviews, whether it's photos or posts or whatever, you can put that in order. Okay. Okay, LinkedIn is another one. This one is, I really believe like this is probably the most underutilized platform for social media. I think agents need to use this more. I think you need to put some time into this for sure, because mostly like the people that are on this are the people that you want as clients in some way, shape, or form. They're the ones that have jobs, they're professionals. I would be on this constantly, okay? Your cover photo here, a little bit different. Again, you want it to be a reflection of your brand. but you don't want it to be something super personal. So again, you want to be able to have that image out there that's going to give people that feeling, but you don't want it something super personal. Same rules as far as the profile photo, and then go through and fill out all of the stuff. LinkedIn will literally tell you if your profile is good or not. Like walk through and fill out all of the things that it recommends. Fill out your about, fill out your job experience, fill out your skills, your endorsements. All of this stuff needs to be filled out on LinkedIn. Okay. Okay, and education. Okay. And then the last one we'll touch on just quickly is Instagram. Kind of the same scenario that we talked about for the bio. You want to have a few personal things, and then, oh, by the way, real estate. Your bio is searchable, so try not to use too strange of keywords in your bio. Like think about keywords people will search, because your bio is searchable. Okay. And then as far as the rest of it goes, when you're set up as a business profile, you can have maps, you know, you can have emails, people can call directly, whatever those calls to action are you want to have on your page, those are available as business profiles. Okay. All right, quickly, because I know we're getting really short on time, I want to touch on content marketing. This is another really great way to voice your brand. So if you have your own website and you have the ability to blog on your website, highly recommend doing this. The other place you can do this is on your Google business page. Putting posts up on your Google business page will also act in the same way that SEO works for you in generating traction to your Google page. In a few weeks, we will do a training on Google as well. But 70% of companies learn, or consumers learn about a company through its blog. So you need to be able to put out information on a regular basis that people can read up on. The more they can educate themselves, the more sold they are before they call you. So you're actually doing a lot of the work for yourself by being able to give them information that they can have and showing them ahead of time that you're an expert. So I highly recommend doing this. This is a whole class in itself. We'll try to dive more into it when we talk about stories in a couple weeks. So just kind of keep that in mind, but just such a good way to tell your story and to get your brand out there. Okay. A few things that you can do to talk about, and we'll dive into this more, but talk about the pain points that your customers have, common questions that you hear in the industry often, things you want to learn about yourself. All of these things are great things to do. Just make sure you're always adding value in some way. And then just noting the disclaimer on here, if you're doing this, make sure you're using images that belong to you or that are copyright or royalty free so that you don't get pinged there. Okay. All right. So the last thing I want to go over is like some next steps. So a few things that I recommend, especially if you're starting to dive in and really get into social media with your brand, things like that, is do a branded photo shoot with a professional photographer. You need to have more images of you on your social media. And if you think you have enough of you on there, I can promise you, you probably don't. So you need to have these branded images. People need to be able to buy into who you are as a person and buy into the person behind the brand. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of images to keep your look consistent and to keep your feel consistent as you start using social media more and more. You want to also make sure that you have that conversation with your photographer about the look and the feeling and the emotion that you want captured in these images so that you are portraying what you want to portray through your brand. Okay. And then once you start getting some of these things in place, I always recommend get outside feedback. Highly recommend you have someone else conduct the feedback besides you, mostly because people are going to be more honest with someone else. They don't want to hurt your feelings. But I recommend that you talk to one or two people that know you really well, one that know you kind of in between, and one or two that don't know you at all, that their only experience is just that interaction with your brand. And that'll give you a good range of how they perceive you and your brand. And then the other thing I want to recommend is to collect key stories. So starting to keep an archive of things, experiences you have with clients, things that happen in the industry. And because whenever you need some information or you need to pull from something or you need something to talk about on social media or in a campaign or whatever, when you have this file of awesome stories, it gives you more things you can pull from so that you have more ammunition and the things that you can put out there. So I hope that helps and makes sense. We'll continue this on a little bit. We've got the next, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. We're talking about brands. We'll talk a lot about stories, setting up for our ideal clients, all of that to make sure you guys really have your brand nailed in the next few weeks. Okay. So that is all I have for today. I'm going to stop share and we can stop the record button. And you guys